Well, hi friends, I'm Brian Cosby. It's Provide and Protect, and today we're talking about emergency communications, and I'm with my dad, and I really don't know a whole lot about emergency communications, and so I brought him in because he is a ham radio operator. Is that
right?
What you call it? Okay, ham radio operator, and but basically I want to talk about in various situations or scenarios that you might be in or could be in, and you're thinking, well, if my cell phone doesn't work, then what do I do? And so that's what we're looking at here today. And just, I guess, maybe at the beginning here, Dad, I guess talking about, like, what are those maybe scenarios that someone could be in? Or, I mean, we just had a hurricane that came through, but how could, like, a hurricane affect communications? Like, in what ways would a hurricane do something to, like, my cell phone?
Right, and recently they have, and in times past, you have Katrina, Sandy, and the latest one.
Yeah.
And so, cell service, internet service was gone during those periods.
Yeah.
And mainly it was due to power failure.
Okay.
The cell towers have many of them have backup batteries, but they last so long.
Okay.
And so most of them don't have generators.
So if
power's out.
If the cell towers don't have power or some kind of other backup, power source like a generator or something else, then they're
eventually going to run out of power.
They're not going to work. And so, I mean, most of us, especially younger generations, that's all we have. It's like is a cell phone.
Yeah.
But you can see other scenarios. I mean, that's one. We've seen one last actually few weeks here, even pretty locally, and a lot of people were without power, and because of that, we're also without some form of communication. And you can imagine, a family that's up in the hills in North Carolina or somewhere else, and there's no power or anything else, and everything's gone. And how do they communicate to the outside world or to emergency responders or anybody else, like, hey, I'm still here and I need help? Yeah. Like, if you don't have a cell phone. If you
don't have a cell phone, you're very limited.
Yeah.
You're very limited on your options there.
Yeah.
There are a few, but they're
and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
The other thing, and some of you have actually commented and given me some emails to me about this, about EMP scenarios, whether sun or an actual man-made EMP attack or something like that, electromagnetic pulse attack, where if there is a kind of nuclear, bomb that goes off above the ground, right?
Right.
And it could really take out.
Yes. Over a large area. Yeah, nuclear EMP.
A large area.
Nuclear device detonated well up into the atmosphere, several hundred miles.
Okay.
Can cause a widespread EMP.
Okay.
And damage electronics.
Okay.
And so among them being cell towers and things like that.
Okay. So it's not just a hurricane. There are other scenarios. We've actually seen this not too long ago where just the cell service, for whatever reason, the cell service itself, it wasn't because of a hurricane or an EMP or something. It's just the cell service itself is gone.
Right.
And so if you're needing to communicate, and so like a kind of a primary thing to do, or to be able to, like a resource to be able to have, is be able to communicate with other people or emergency services or whoever else.
Yeah, and if you had these kind of events, even in hurricanes, if you have no way to generate power yourself, and the cell service and all of the internet is down, your world's going to be very dark and very quiet.
Yeah, you could have emergency stuff. You can have first aid, bug out bag, those kinds of stuff. But eventually, you're going to need to communicate with others, and that's what this video is about. It's really about talking about some things that we can think about. And I want to actually show you a kit here in just a moment from Tigrett Outdoors. And I really want to promote this today because I think it's a great all-around, throw in your vehicle, take around with you kit that you can have with you as one of the options. There's others, but one of the options that you can have with you for something like this. All right, so for a lot of people that maybe you don't, you've never done a lot of research on communications other than maybe cell phones or maybe a walkie talkie or something like that. it seems like there are other ways to communicate, two-way. So when I say two-way, what are we talking about by two-way?
Well, two-way would be you and I.
Okay.
We're talking. We can do it over.
I can
the radio.
listen.
You can listen and speak.
Transmit.
Two-way, not just listen, but actually transmit.
Yeah. So a couple of ideas. These are just walkie talkies. These are DeWalt. I've got a review on these great little walkie talkies. And when I'm doing work on our property and I'm over, running the chainsaw, I will leave one of these with my family, my kids, my wife, whatever. I'll take the other one with me, and just in case something happens, I get hurt, I cut myself with a chainsaw. I've got communication. So there's that. I mean, so Midland is a popular.
Oh yeah, very popular.
Maybe
Midland, probably
Cobra.
One of the more
Yeah. So also same idea though.
Right.
But these kind of walkie talkies. I mean, these are things that anybody can buy. I mean, Walmart or wherever for
Amazon, anywhere.
Cheap, $20, $30, you can get two of them. And they're great for that kind of thing. But what's the limitation on something like those? Like what could you not do with like something?
Well, you can certainly communicate with one another.
Yeah.
With your family.
Close range.
Close range.
Close range.
They're low power.
Yeah.
They're less than probably 5 watts and less generally.
Okay.
And so they're low power. So you have and you can see the antenna on these are not exactly
they're not very
long
big.
antennas. So your range is limited. You may, depending on the terrain you're in, it may be a couple of miles, it may be 5 miles, but these are line of sight devices. So if you got a big ridge between you, there's a good chance you won't get over that ridge to the other party.
It's funny because some of the boxes like that these things come in, they'll say like 20, 30 miles or something.
Yes.
There's no way.
Well, if you, in an ideal world, if both of you were on mountain peaks, and there was no atmospheric or radio interference, perhaps you might be able to do it.
Okay.
But in the real world,
there's
the trees and hills. No. It's you got a limited range.
Yeah.
And
so there is a use for this. I don't want to say there's not a use for it. I mean, these little walkie-talkie things that you can buy, and again, I really do like these DeWalt ones. But there is a use for them for around your property or close range. You're going hiking and you just need something with your buddies. That'd be a fine use for something like that. Now, there are other forms of communication other than something like this, and I'm going to get into this kit in just a second, but there's other forms of communication. Another one's a CB. So, and I've got one over here. This is a Midland, and I don't know if you guys can see. Yeah. This is a Midland, and I don't have all the other stuff with it. I just brought the little unit out here, but what would be a purpose for a CB radio?
Well, again, it's two-way communication. And, of course, these have been around a long time. I mean, 50, 60 years ago, they were all the craze. And so a lot of people got them in their cars, the trucks. Truckers still use them to a large degree. But
and there's certain channels like a trucker will use, like 19 or whatever it is.
It's got 40 channels. The truckers are on one. There's an emergency channel and so forth. But it's a fairly low cost. Again, a low power. The off the shelf, they're limited to 4 watts. So you're depending on your antenna and terrain range is going to be limited on them. But it's a very inexpensive way to get into a two-way. Probably on most of the radios, you're looking somewhere in the range of maybe 3 to 7 miles, depending on terrain and your antenna. For an off-the-shelf one. Now, of course, people do get them modified and they raise the power. But as for an off-the-shelf one, you have some similar limitations to the walkie-talkie. You don't have a real long range. But probably the bigger thing with these is that the frequency is very noisy. If you've ever listened to an AM, a lot of static, a lot of frequency congestion. And so there's no rules really on it, and so you hear all kind of stuff that is shouldn't be there.
So if you're on and I've had one in my truck here, but if you have one in your vehicle and you've got an antenna you can set up, and all that, That's a whole nother thing. Or there's home ones. You can get the tall antennas, and I've got one of those too.
You can hook them to a base station.
Yeah,
antenna.
base station,
Absolutely.
and go a lot farther in range.
But I'd say the big thing again is limited range and the noise. The noise is really a factor that you don't have with these that are UHF range.
Yeah. So a lot of people are probably going to wonder about UHF versus VHF. So it comes down to the wavelength, right?
Yes.
And this is going to be more technical than you probably.
This is way before.
you care, but in the simplest terms between UHF, VHF, what would be the in the simplest term for someone that doesn't know anything about that? What would be that?
Yeah, difference? Well, everyone's familiar with their AM band on the radio. They're their FM band, and so both of those, you might say, well, those are good examples of that. And your AM band is really a low frequency range down there.
And the FM band is going to be
FM typically is up in the higher frequencies.
Higher frequency. Okay.
You're around 100 megahertz for FM. The CB radio is 27 megahertz.
Okay.
And it's got 11 meter wavelength. They measure wavelength in meters. And so anyway, so it's in that range there. These radios here they're a much higher range. Your GMR, they're in the 460 megahertz range. So very high frequency. What's called UHF or ultra high frequency. And and as you get up in the frequencies, they're more line of sight. As you get down in the frequencies, they can bend a little bit.
I've heard that for the lower frequencies, you can transmit a farther distance. Mm-hmm. It's going to have a lower wavelength,
very long wavelengths.
But it's not as good direct, like through concrete walls and things like that. Mm-hmm. But the UHF is going to be better, close range, but can penetrate better in those kind of applications.
Yeah, these radios they're good radios. You got clear, quiet frequencies, unlike the CB.
See what I'm talking about here.
They're and they have similar wattage outputs that the CB does, and so really they're a good choice. People talk about the skip in the CB, and occasionally, depending on the solar conditions, you can get a skywave type of a skip where you could reach out several hundred miles, but that's a very isolated condition.
Under certain
very limited conditions would that happen.
Yeah.
You couldn't reliably use that as, say, a long-range, reliable communication. It happens occasionally, but that'll happen with these. It won't happen with the GMRS.
All right, so these are just a couple of options here. I'm going to get to what I think is a better option in just a moment, and we'll talk about this from Tigrett Outdoors. But these simple Walkie Talkies, there is a purpose and a good purpose for them around your property. Buddies hanging out, you're camping, hiking, but maybe not for emergency though. Maybe not for emergency in getting to emergency services. If you had to long range or something like that, would be harder.
It would be harder.
More difficult.
Although, with the General Mobile radios, you can get a radio that looks like this, a mobile radio.
Yeah.
Up to 50 watts.
Yeah.
So, you can get some range.
But for a lot of the ones you buy at Walmart or whatever, it's probably not going to be, not going to be for that. And if you want to be truly prepared as a family, it's not only food and water and shelter and first aid, but communications is another big part of that. Now, this is a one-way. I mean, this is not going to be transmitting, right? So, but it's something to at least think about. So this is one of these, they're $15 or something. And it's an AM, FM radio that has a solar thing on top. So you can put out, there's no battery. So you put out in the sun and it can charge it that way. It's got a little antenna right here. You can pop up, or if it's raining and you're indoors and you still want to have power, it has this little crank thing on the side. You can crank it up and you can turn on.
Today, visit GoMods.com.
I don't even hear that. Turn the radio up. Anyway, but you can crank this up.
Come on, kids, 96.
Right.
And make it work.
Yeah.
So there's other options, but that will not transmit.
Right.
That's just receiving information. All right. So probably the best of all worlds. And I know you're partial to this because you are a ham radio. And so when we talk about ham radio, amateur radio is what that is.
That's what it is. Sure.
And there's 3 classes. Now, we've talked about something like this. You might classify this with FRS, a family
or General Mobile Radio Service.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so General Mobile Radio Service, so GMRS, you actually have to have a license for that. But for the
FTC.
Yeah, but for the family radio service, you do not.
You do not.
So if you go and buy these DeWalt ones, you don't have to have, these are specifically, you don't have to have a GMRS or a ham radio license from the FCC. It's a federal, what was it, Communications Commission.
Yes.
You don't have to have a license for these. But to do the frequency for GMRS, and certainly for ham, you have to have a license. Now, you don't have to take an examination or any kind of test or anything for the GMRS, but for the amateur or the ham radio, you do.
You do. Yeah. The difference is on the amateur ham, you actually have to take an exam and study for it, take an exam. And as Brian mentioned, there's 3 grades of that. The GMRS, you can get a license for GMRS, and if you want to operate on the GMRS frequencies and take advantage of that, then you have to get that license. And Brian's got a...
Here's my authorization right here.
They give
GMRS.
They give you a call sign. That's your unique call sign. Your family can use those. But to operate on GMRS, you have to do it. Now, the family radio service does not. So most of these will operate on both. There's certain channels that are family, certain channels that are GMRS.
You got to look that up.
You got to look it up. Just Google it. You look it up, and you'll find all about that.
Okay.
But for GMRS, you do have to have a license, but no test. That's nice.
Okay.
No test. Just send your money in. They give you that piece.
All right. So as we talk about ham, then as maybe the best option of all in this, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to talk about this. I'm actually going to bring you in just a moment and talk about this and show you the features of this. But before I do that, just big picture for ham radio. Why that? I mean, why would you take the effort to get a ham radio license that, as opposed to something like this?
Sure. Well, I mean, the thing about the ham radio, it gives you access to radios that cover really a very broad range of frequency spectrums, and some of those have the ability to really communicate worldwide. So out of your own home,
you can communicate worldwide from your home.
Antenna, you can communicate worldwide.
Okay.
But the nice thing about it does give you that range, and it also the thing about getting the license is you learn a lot. You learn a lot about radios and frequencies and all of that kind of thing.
To the education piece.
Yeah, it's very helpful. Okay. So even though you have to take this test, there's a lot that you learn. Yeah. It's useful. It's very useful about all of this. But
what I've learned is that there's a community out there of ham radio operators that, there's clubs, like local clubs and things like that all around.
Yeah. And they're also involved. They associate together to handle emergency communications. So when you have one of these disasters and there is nothing there, there's probably a whole grid of ham operators that can coordinate and communicate with each other, because a lot of the other communications are not there. Now today, of course, we got satellite, and they could use satellite phones as long as the satellite grids are operational.
There's no EMP that destroys those.
EMP takes that out.
But this is actually just a philosophy of use thing here that, one of the things that we're trying to promote in this channel is be that sheepdog kind of idea where you're prepared not only for yourself or your family, but also for your community. Sure. That if something happens, there's an emergency, disaster, or hurricane, grid down, EMP, something going on, that you're still the one that steps up in the gap and can help out.
Sure.
And a ham radio, it seems like, is one of its primary things.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you in and we're going to look at this kit from Tigrett Outdoors as an option that you can just throw in your car, your home, have it in your house, maybe a couple of these around. But I'm going to bring you in, show you what's in this kit. If you just get this kit, this will take care of a lot of what you might need to do. And really, actually, before I do that, one more quick thing. For ham radio, I know it takes a license in the normal operations to use it. But there is one exception to that.
Yes.
Which is what?
Well, at least we understand that when emergency comes, and you need to communicate, especially if it were a life or death situation. I mean, most people they're going to use whatever means they got necessary.
I mean, they just got to do what they got to do.
They're going to do what they got to do, and certainly in the actual ham radio license rules, there is a rule that
provision that says
there's a provision that says an amateur station, in an emergency involving life or severe property damage, you can use whatever means you need to do.
Okay.
So. And that's one of the other things about the ham radio is legally you can do that.
Yeah. So even though this has a ham radio in it, I don't have a license for ham radio yet. I hope to with my son actually soon, but I don't have one yet. But even if I don't have a ham radio license, I can, number one, I can still receive. I mean, I'll show you some of the things that are on here. I mean, whether it's emergency communications, I can receive the National Weather Service. I mean, I can listen to all the things going on legally, totally legally. Mm-hmm. But in an actual emergency, life-threatening situation, I can communicate with this, even if I don't have a license, in a true emergency, not normal operations.
Not normal operations.
Yeah. So, but that's why this is still a good option, even if you don't have one, although there's good reasons to go ahead and pursue that kind of licensing. But I'm going to go ahead and bring you in. We'll take a look at what's in this kit and why this might be a great option for you. So this is the Tigrett Outdoors. This is one of their radio kits. Now, they've got a bunch of them on their website. I'll drop a link down below. And I'll mention this later, but if you put in the code PROVIDEANDPROTECT, all capitals, couple letters, you can get 12% off. But just a great little kit and nice little bag. Got a lot of MOLLE on here. One thing I like about this bag, by the way, I don't know if people mention this or not, but I'm going to mention it because it's part of this review. I can take off this whole back part here, and if you have a kit, if you're running a big kit like this, take out the front, you put this on the front of the kit, something like that. Certainly you can do that. So, there goes my, it works. That's the purpose of that. All right, but the idea is that great little bag. They put this in. But let me show you what's in here. One thing I like about this bag, you can open it up just all the way, just flat like this. And good, if we can fit this in the camera here. But here's what's in here. The main thing that's in here is this. We're going to call it Bofang. Dad, I mean, there are all kinds of ways to pronounce this. I've heard Bofang. That might be right. I've heard Baofeng. Yeah. But we're going to call it Bofang because we don't know, and who knows? I don't think anybody knows, except for the people that make it. So, China, yeah. So anyway, but I mean, for what you get in this kit, this is really, this is a really helpful kit for emergency kind of purposes. So let me just explain what's in the kit, and we can talk about the why of it in just a moment. So you get this. This is the actually. Let me go ahead and pull out the nicer. So this kit will come not only with the regular antenna, which is this one right here, regular antenna. So more short range applications, and then you got this longer one here, and also comes with this upgraded adapter, that you can see right here, this adapter. So they've included that into the kit. Now to put the normal short antenna on there, you'd have to take that off. But the nice thing about this adapter is that you can put this right here on and just turn it and you're good. That's it. It's super fast on and off. So This is a Nagoya. It's a longer antenna that improves the range of this. Now, so this is not, I'm not going to go into a tutorial on this radio right here. But you can do frequency mode, channel mode. The big advantage of getting this kit with Tigrett Outdoors is that he goes ahead and he programs something like 100 something pre-programmed channels for our area. Whatever the shipping address is that you have, he will pre-program the main channels for that area. And so here you go. So, and you can go up and down on those and up. I can go to the bottom one here and for the channels and see this real quick. 5, 4, different channels for areas. Anyway, go back to frequency mode.
Wednesday night, mostly clear in the evening, then becoming partly cloudy.
There's the National Weather Service right there. Go to the top channel. That would be more for short range stuff that I've got for my own property here. But anyway, super amazing device. Now this is a ham radio. What we were talking about earlier, this is a ham radio. Now can this do GMRS and other frequencies? Absolutely. Sure. You can do that with this. We'll talk more about this in just a moment, the philosophy of use for this. But let me show you what else is in this kit. Not only the bag, not only this radio, the extended antenna that's on there, you also have a better battery. Actually, this by the way, is the, I don't know if you can see it right there. It's not going to let me show you here, but it's the BF F8 HP. This is the Gen 3 version of the most popular, they're very similar, Baofeng, we're calling it, the UV5R. So this UV5R is the most popular radio in the world. I mean, best-selling radio in the world. This is an upgraded version of it in this kit. So it has a few upgrades and added features to this that are not on the previous model. And so this has a better battery, the initial regular battery on here, but this kit comes with a much beefier battery. This will last a long time. The other big advantage to this battery is that you can see it's got the USB-C plug-in right there. So you don't have to have the dock, which comes with all of them. You don't have to have that if you don't want. You can just have with the USB-C, which it comes with, thankfully. So here's the cord. So if you want to charge it, there you go. You got the cord for the battery. And then you think about, what is this cord for? Well, this kit also comes with a solar panel here. So, you know, if you don't have power, which a lot of people, they don't have. So this would be a great option. And you can open up the end right here. And you can plug in whatever you need to on there. It's got it's got actually a flashlight on this thing and a compass. So you can have a flashlight. There's a flashlight. There you go. You got a compass on the back, so I don't know how good that is, but anyway, that's not the purpose for that. But you can still plug it in. It's got a user manual over here, but I just put, oops, everything's got Velcro on it. Got these charging cables on here. The other thing it comes with, and this is pretty cool actually, is this push-to-talk little thing that, you know, if you want to run this on your chest rig, your kit, or your shirt, or something else, it's just a little push-to-talk. It's got a little clip on the back here, and you run one of these sides here to your actual radio. And so here on this side right here, see those two holes? You just plug that in there, and then the other side, obviously, you know, to something like actually the Walkers. So it's actually designed for something like the Walkers headphones. Now we sell these. We partnered with Walkers for these earmuffs here, and we sell these on our website, ProvideProtectShop.com. So you can find these at a discount. But you can see you've got this little port right here. You can plug this into the port, and you can run this radio, and this is of course electronic, so it muffles the sound once there's a loud sound, but you can amplify the volume on these. So that's pretty cool. So you can run this kit. Basically, you can just have this in your pocket, somewhere else, and just have this little earpiece thing with you, so you don't just have to have this next to your ear the whole time. So that's a nice little feature. So anyway, this whole kit here, this is what I want to really promote here with you guys today. But the real question though is with the actual ham radio itself. And my dad's still here next to me, by the way. But the ham radio itself, you've got frequencies, channels with this. And as we mentioned earlier, you have to have a license from the FCC to run this as a ham radio. And this is a ham radio.
It is, yes.
This is a ham radio.
Right.
So you're not allowed to use this unless you have a ham radio. Unless the one exception is if this is an emergency situation. And if you're watching this, well, that's kind of what we're talking about. We're talking about emergency situations that's dealing with, it's more than just like hanging out with your buddies. You just want a walkie-talkie. Something's gone wrong in society, or you've got a life-threatening situation. This is all you have to communicate. You can use this.
Absolutely. Yeah, the ham radio is it's a great radio to have, and even though you're still limited somewhat on the range of these because it's still a handheld device, but locally within within your local community, you can probably be able to reach out and speak with people on that. Even if you don't transmit, the ham radio is a great source of critical information, especially in emergencies, because ham operators, like I say, they are networked together in these emergency response associations. And so even if you're not communicating, you can listen and learn an awful lot from the ham radio operators.
I'm going to ask a dumb question here. So let's say someone watching this, maybe me too, they're like, okay, I'm going to go buy this. I just bought one, right? I just bought this thing from Tigrett Outdoors, whatever. I don't have a ham radio license. There's a grid down scenario, EMP attack, there's some hurricane or whatever. And I want to know how my family is doing in, the next state over or something. Is it possible? Do I have to pre-arrange, plan this with some family member in another part of the state or another state nearby? If we needed to communicate in an emergency situation, is it possible? And
sure. I mean, the best way, if you know a ham operator who has the ability to communicate with the outside world, go to that operator. That operator can reach outside stations, who then can put you in touch. Maybe not online, but at least put you in touch with a family member.
All right. So one thing is to know a ham radio operator.
That would be it. Yeah.
All right. So if you're listening to this, it's probably good to know a ham radio operator somewhere. How do you find that? How do you find
your network of friends is one way to do it. I mean, that's probably the best way.
All right, let's say you don't have the ham radio operator. You don't know somebody. Is it possible at all to communicate with outside world? If I have this, how do I communicate with the outside world?
One way is to use the radio. If you get on frequency with a ham radio operator, it would be to contact that person. And again, they can help you in relaying messages or whatever, because like I said, these have limited range, and so you're not going to be able to reach real far with these anyway. So the best thing would be to find some way to relay that. Often we do it through a repeater, but in a scenario like we're talking about, a lot of times those repeaters may not be available. Okay.
So that is one important piece here. You can use this to access repeaters.
Yes, you can.
So, but for a lot of people that are maybe watching this, they're thinking, all right, I have this now and I want to be prepared. do I talk to other people outside of my area beforehand to know that we're on the same frequency? Like, what can I do
Right, it's helpful to know which frequencies. Now there are, there's two modes to this, a simplex and a duplex. The duplex mode has to be used with repeaters.
Okay.
The simplex mode is all just one frequency. The duplex uses two frequencies at the same time.
Okay.
The simplex mode is like your Walkie Talkies, one frequency.
Okay.
There are national simplex frequencies, and there's a number of frequencies that are dedicated to simplex use on these type of radios, both in the VHF and the UHF bands.
Okay.
So the best thing to do would be to dial in one of those frequencies and listen to if you have someone in your range that's using one of those simplex frequencies.
Okay. Okay.
That's probably the best way.
So it would be a good idea, maybe before an emergency happens, to at least know a frequency.
Look those up. You can Google it and look up the national simplex frequencies for these bands.
Look up the simplex frequencies for these bands, and then make sure that you and the other person or the other family member are on the same page with those frequencies.
Right.
Okay. So that's how you do it. So you can use this emergency situation. Obviously listening, I mean, you can hear the other, you can scan, you can push and hold. I mean, the user manual will show you how to do all this stuff. So this is not the purpose of this video, but you can press and hold and you can scan all the channels, emergency channels, weather channels. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff on this that you can use. But certainly in an emergency situation, to be able to communicate, you need to know the other person's the same frequency to be able to communicate that. So,
and understand that those frequencies in an emergency situation are only used for emergency communications, because there are ham operators out there that are going to be quite possibly coordinating emergency services and things like that, and you don't want to congest the frequency with especially unnecessary communication.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, be a good neighbor. Don't do that. All right. So all that to say, what a great kit. I mean, to have what you need with this extended range here, antenna, including the normal one here for closer range, backup battery, extended life battery on here, solar power kit. This push to talk thing you can add to, put on your shirt, put on your kit, if you're running a kit or something, all your charging stuff here as well. I mean, what a great kit in a nice case. So you can just get this kit and put this, in your bag, put this in your vehicle, something like that. Just I think a great way to go. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. And, if you would like to purchase this, again, I'll drop a link for this down below. And if you actually put in the code PROVIDEANDPROTECT, you get a 12% discount on your order. And again, great company. I've really enjoyed working with them, partnering with them. But thanks so much for your support for us, and we'll see you on the next video.